This fish is loved by anglers young and old, novice and experienced, and can be found both inshore and offshore throughout the entire state. You don't even need a boat to target this feisty snapper, as they can be found hanging out under just about any dock in Florida. Stay tuned as our captains give you the info you need to get out and catch a mangrove snapper this weekend here on the Florida Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Florida Insider Fishing Report, powered by Harbor Trucks and presented by Yamaha.
Welcome back, Floridians, and thanks for tuning in to the Florida Insider Fishing Report. And as you could probably tell, we have Captain Tommy Derringer in the house tonight, filling in for Captain Rick Murphy. So thanks for being here, Tommy.
Thanks for having me, Brie.
Yeah, it's good to have you. You're well seasoned by now, so we've got this, right?
We got it.
All right, we're talking about mangoes, as you like to call them.
Mangoes,
tonight, right?
You know what? They're such a cool fish for a bunch of different reasons. You know, one reason is that a lot of people, it's their first fish they ever catch. It's the fish is all over the state.
Mia's already caught one.
There you go. Yeah, kids love them. You know, it's a great fish to take your kids to go catch, but it's also great for the guys that are experienced. You know, an experienced angler goes offshore and they can catch a giant mangrove snapper. They get really big and they're really good to eat too.
Exactly. Well, that's
really
definitely
good.
a prized one that you're going to want to catch anyways. All right. Well, the green-blue team, we're kind of clashy, but not. We're good.
That's good.
We're not real legends, killing it tonight. All right, we've got Dave Ferrell over at the CCA Workbench, who's also in his blue.
Just another shade.
Just another shade
of blue.
50 Shades of Blue tonight. What are we talking about?
We're talking about mangroves, and they're just an awesome fish to catch. Everybody likes to catch them. They're everywhere. So we're going to show you how to do it.
We're going to show you how to do it. All right, hopefully get the big ones, right?
Yep.
The big ones are good.
Absolutely.
Big ones, little ones.
All right, well, mangroves are all over the Discover Crystal River Northwest region, so that seems like a good place to start with your captain, Jeff Hageman. Hey, Hag.
How you doing?
We're doing
Mangroves,
great.
we've got them throughout the entire region, like Ray was just saying, from shallow to deep. Any type of structure, docks, bridges, rock piles, reefs, wrecks, basically any type of high relief structure will hold them. In the summer months, they tend to school up in larger numbers on that full and new moons, but mostly that full. They get together to spawn in July and August on that moon. So depending on the water temp, it's usually July and August is when they spawn, and they get in greater numbers, and you can catch a lot of them in one spot. So that's a great place to go target them, fish them at night, and they got really good eyesight, so fluorocarbon leader is a must with them. The lightest you can get away with. That being said, downsize your hooks, downsize your lead. All your tackle is a great idea as well. And lots of chum is always a great thing with snapper. So you can put some chum out behind the boat, put a chum block out, cut up some chum, get that going. That'll catch you a whole lot more fish. As far as live baits go for them, small pinfish, small sardines, and shrimp are probably the top three out there. Cut baits, fresh shrimp, cut sardines are also works. A knocker rig is a really big thing with snapper fishing. It lets that fish pick up that bait without feeling that lead, and actually pull the lead right through and let you get a few more bites. So that's another little tip I've got for snapper fishing. But staying offshore right now, the gag grouper bite remains really strong throughout the entire region. With the summer in full force right now, you want to look a little deeper for that cooler water on the bottom. That'll pay off in dividends. 90 to 250 feet of water has been holding some good fish right now over rock piles, ledges. You can use a standard bottom rig with 100 to 150 pound fluorocarbon leader, depending on your water clarity, of course. The heavier leader you can get away with, the better off you are, and the easier you're going to get them out with. 8 to 12 ounce head sinker, depending on the current you've got, and a 7 to 12 watt hook, depending on the size bait you're dropping down. And you want to start off with cut bait. Use cut sardines, cut thread fins, cut octopus, cut squid. Get the fish fired up really good before you fire up those live baits. Once the bite starts slowing down in the spot you're in, then it's a good time to fire down those live baits and get the fish fired back up again. And I've got a great photo of Aiden Davenport with an awesome West Coast gag.
That's a big old gag there.
Yeah, it's almost a rusty belly. Not quite, but almost there.
Rusty belly, that's right.
Yeah. A little bit bigger, he'd be a rusty belly. But the snook bite right now, moving inshore, has remained strong in the lower half of the region. Reports coming in from Tampa Bay all the way to Crystal River. In Tampa, you you want to look for fish around mangrove points with good current flow. From St. Pete to Anclote, you want to look for fish out on the beaches, in that swash channel along the beach, the passes, jetty, bridges, docks, anything around there that's got good current flow is where you're going to find the snook right now. And from Hudson to Crystal River, you're going to look for fish on those outer barrier islands. Live fish, pinfish, and sardines, either free line or under a cork for both areas, has been the bait of choice. 2 to 4 foot of fluorocarbon leader in that 20 to 30 pound range, and a 2/0 to 4/0 circle hook. And remember, right now, handling fish, it's a little hotter. The water temperature's tough, and once you get done fighting that fish, it might take a little bit extra reviving. Take a quick photo and get those fish back in the water, and it'll help keep our stock the way it is. I got a good photo here of a great West Coast snook caught on a recent trip of mine.
Very nice. That is your boat, that's for sure.
Yep. The redfish bite in the entire region right now has been really good. You want to look for fish on the top of the tide. Large mullet schools have been the trick in the south part of the region, all the way from St. Pete to Cedar Key. Finding the mullet school seems to be the trend, and finding the redfish. So spend a little extra time, find the redfish, you'll find those, or find the mullet, you'll find those redfish. Cut mullet, cut ladyfish have been popular cut baits. Live pinfish, either free line or under a cork, have been really popular live baits. In the northern part of the region, from Keaton Beach to Apalachicola, you want to fish the outer island points, oyster bars, shell bars, and cuts with good moving water. Fresh or live shrimp or an artificial quarter-ounce, half-ounce gold spoon has been a great redfish bait always, and those are working well up there right now. And I've got a photo here from a recent trip, also from my boat, of a couple nice West Coast redfish.
Very nice. Hey, Jeff, it's taking everything in me not to drive on over and go scalloping. Can you please give us the scallop report, if you have one?
The scallops right now are a little deeper. They still haven't moved in shallow. The last report I got from Mario was they were in 7 to 12 foot of water over the bird wreck. So hopefully we'll have a little less rain this week, and they'll come in a little shallower and make them a little easier to catch. But people are still getting limits. They're just a little tougher to acquire.
All right, thank you so much.
Man, you guys talking about scallops, you guys eating lobster. I mean, gosh,
I know.
it makes
Living a
everybody
tough
hungry
life
around
over here.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Here are the anytime sunscreen and mosquito repellent hotspots for the Northwest region. Inshore, snook. They are around the bridges, docks, and the outside bars and passes. Use free line, sardines, and pinfish. And then offshore, grouper. They're biting at 85 to 250 feet of water over rock piles and ledges. Use pinfish on a standard bottom rig.
I know you and the family just had a little trip down on the Keys, but
We did.
you should take them over scalloping.
I know, we're gonna do that real soon. They get a little bit older.
And when they get a little shallow.
Yeah, that's right.
7 feet's a little much for little kids. All right, Tommy, instead of FaceTime, it's actually time for your face here in person.
My face is here.
Your face is here to give us the Strike Zone Northeast Region report. So get your mango on.
Well, you know, we were talking about big mangrove snapper in the opening there. We've got some Mama Jamma snapper here in the Strike Zone Northeast region. And, you know, I've been talking about them a lot over the last couple of months, and our big spawners are fired up. I spoke to Captain Jimmy Laidler from the legendfishing.com, and he tells me, although we've had a great season of mango fishing, the bite has slowed down quite a bit for now. And there's still a few around, but they seem to have spawned a little early this year. Jimmy said they're still catching them pretty good in the south end of Georgia and around Amelia Island, and we should have one more go at them on the next moon pretty much throughout the region. Now, Jimmy says you're typically going to find those big mangoes on the bigger ledges in about 100 to 140 feet of water. Now, if you're fishing the bottom, he likes to use live sardines with a long 60 to 80 pound fluorocarbon leader. That fluorocarbon is important, like the guys are going to talk about tonight. Those fish can see really, really good. Now, one really fun way to catch the mangoes is to chum them up to the surface. You know, when they spawn around the full and new moons from May through about this time of year, you can start chumming them up using chunked sardines. Now, you're going to want to downsize your gear to a long 20 to 30 pound fluorocarbon leader with a smaller 3/0 VMC circle hook. And you can just float a chunk of that sardine back with the chum. And we have a pretty good mangrove snapper bite happening inshore right now too. Just about any of the docks in Palm Coast and around downtown St. Augustine are going to be holding some decent sized snapper. And I got a photo here. This is Captain Gibbs from theangryseas.com sent me this photo of Brad Brittenson with a big, big mangrove snapper that they caught offshore of St. Augustine last week.
Decent.
Pretty decent. We get some really big ones up in our region, so
wow.
that's a good one there. Now, staying offshore, I also spoke to Captain Jimmy about the kingfish bite we have happening along the beach. Now, I've had several great reports last week of big kingfish coming from 20 to 50 foot of water just north of the St. Augustine Inlet. Captain Jimmy says he's slow trolling pogies and ribbonfish both up top and on the downrigger. He's going to move from east to west until he starts to get that bite. And when he does, he's going to troll more north to south or south to north in that depth where he got the bite. And it's also not a bad idea to troll around those pogie pods that are in a little deeper water. After all, that's what they're there eating. Those kingfish eat a lot of pogies, so it's a great place to catch them. Now, moving inshore, we're getting into the heart of our tarpon season in the Strike Zone Northeast region, and the tarpon are pretty thick along the beaches and in the pogie pods and behind the shrimp boats. The early morning bite along the bait pods has been best, but don't overlook the bite that's happening just before dark as well, especially after some of these afternoon thunderstorms that get fired up. In St. Augustine, there's also been quite a few bigger fish showing up along the bridges and at the inlets on the outgoing tide first thing in the morning. Find some big live mullet and float or free line them back to where you see the fish busting. Now, I also spoke to Captain Danny Flynn from FishAmeliaIsland.com. He tells me that the South Jetty at the St. Mary's Inlet has been thick with tarpon. Captain Danny says they're hooking a bunch of big fish on just about every trip right now, and he likes to fish the incoming tide with a live mullet or pogie on the bottom. Now, I've seen some of Danny's recent pictures, and let me tell you, if you're wanting to catch a tarpon, give him a call because they are slaying those big tarpon up there right now. I got a photo that Captain Danny sent me. His client, Drew Boysa, with one of those monster poons that he's been catching there in the St. Mary's Inlet. Now, staying inshore, we've got an awesome redfish tide this weekend with high outgoing water first thing in the morning throughout the region. That couldn't be a better time to toss a topwater plug. Just about all the captains I spoke to this week told me they've been crushing the redfish on topwaters first thing in the morning. Just look for concentrations of bait along the grass or along an oyster bar, depending on the tide height, and toss your topwater along there. Now, when the sun gets higher and the tide gets a little lower, we've been switching to a saltwater assassin jerkbait or paddle tail in that Mama's 14K color. That color really seems to mimic that what the mullet are looking like right now. Now, the reds have been pushing off the flats to the edges of the ICW throughout the region on that lower water. The inlet and the deeper water reds have really started to show better as they tend to do this time of year. There's a good mix of upper slot and some big overslot fish at pretty much all the inlets, bridges, and along the edges of the St. Johns River. And they're mostly eating live or cut mullet or even crab on the bottom, but some anglers are even catching them on fish bites. And that brings me to my last photo. Our buddy Scott Jones sent me this photo of Leslie Martinez with a bull red that she caught along the St. Johns River on one of those Fish Bites Fight Club shrimp.
Nice, fish bites, there we go.
Yeah, that's a big fish to catch on an artificial in deep water. That's really cool.
A big fish.
That's really cool.
All right, well, you know what? You can read your own hotspots if you want.
Should I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, and, here are the hotspots, the Rodan Marine Systems hotspots for the Northeast region. Inshore bull redfish at the inlets and along the edges of the St. Johns River near the Dames Point Bridge, and fish around the slack tides with live or cut mullet or crab, and offshore kingfish along the beach north of the Volano Inlet in 20 to 50 feet of water, slow troll pogies up top and or on the downrigger.
Ready for some water?
Yes.
That was a lot of talking there, Tommy.
Talking.
All right, coming right up here on the Florida Insider Fishing Report, we're taking a look at what the weekend brings in the Bell's Southwest region, but let's take a sneak peek at what Dave is bringing over at the CCA workbench.
Well,
what you bringing?
Well, we're going to talk about going big and going small for the mangrove snappers because, like Tommy said, there's big ones and little ones, and you got to do different things to catch them.
Everywhere and in between.
That's right.
We'll be right back.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Harbor Trucks. Visit harbortrucks.com. Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Contender Boats. Always in the game. Sirius XM Marine. Weather, fishing info, and channel surfing. And Daiquiri Deck. Sarasota's favorite place to meet.
Titan and Titan XD Diesel from Harbor Trucks has America's best truck warranty, 5 years, 100,000-mile bumper-to-bumper, and can tow up to 12,000 pounds. Harbor Trucks has the largest selection of Titan XD and Titan in Florida, starting at $29,000. Harbor Trucks is conveniently located halfway between Tampa and Naples. Harbor Trucks, the place to buy.
Meet the water's lightest 25 horsepower four-stroke, the all-new Yamaha F25, the new standard and 25 horsepower portable four-strokes. At just 126 pounds, it's got the best power-to-weight ratio of any 25 horsepower four-stroke on the water. With performance that bests the previous Yamaha F25 and features like Yamaha's VTS for precise trolling speeds, batteryless EFI, built-in resting pads, and carry handles, it's the perfect portable power for small boats.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Dave?
Noonan.
What's up, man? Hey, we're here for the Academy Sports Rigs and Techniques at the CCA workbench.
Yes, you got it all in there.
Talking mangoes, man. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, you know, they're kind of, the mangrove snapper is kind of like the saltwater brim.
That's
right. You know, like you were saying, it's one of the first fish that you catch in saltwater, either that or a hardhead catfish.
Right.
Because you're using a shrimp on a dock somewhere, and they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
You know,
boat ramps.
Yeah,
everywhere.
they're a little snapper that, you know, but they're like, it's like a tale of two different fish, though, because although they spend a lot of their young time inshore, once they get bigger, they get older, they move offshore. So it's a totally different thing. But when we're targeting those little inshore ones, what we're looking for is moving water. They really like places where the tide is moving through, like under bridges and whatnot, near inlets, any rock pile.
Love rock piles.
A sunken boat of any sort, anywhere, either on a flat or in a channel or offshore, is going to probably have several of them or a bunch on it. Mm-hmm. And what you do is you get up in a lot of those shallow areas, you can see them. You know, they move around enough and are active enough that you can usually see them, and they're readily identifiable. They're kind of a reddish brown color when they're little like that. They kind of lighten up as they get older and bigger, but they still have that same brownish coloration on them. They got that big tail and the snapper mouth, you know, with a lot of teeth in it.
They got some nasty teeth.
And they got some big eyeballs, and that's the main thing is they're very wary around leader material and stuff. Like we were saying, whenever you build a rig, you don't want to put a lot of swivels and beads and whatnot on it. You want to try to keep it as simple as possible. And that the fish finder rig that we were talking about, you know, knocker rig with just a big circle hook like this with a weight that goes all the way down on the hook. Right. You know, is a great thing when you're fishing for the big ones offshore. This is an 80-pound rig here. It's pretty much like a grouper rig. And when you're going to be fishing for them offshore, you're going to want to be using something that might be able to catch that grouper or whatever that eats the same thing you're trying to catch the big mangrove snappers with. But like I said, that knocker rig is really good because it's very stealthy. Also, you can use a regular chicken rig. You know, you can get down and use a chicken rig on like 20-pound test fluorocarbon. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be fishing for them during the daytime and you're fishing for those little fellas, especially, you're going to want to use fluorocarbon. You probably want to use fluorocarbon all during the day if you're fishing for the big ones.
Definitely.
At nighttime, you can get away with using regular mono.
Right.
They just can't see it as well. They're not seeing it as well.
We talked about it a little bit before we came out, and you know, when we're catching them inshore, a lot of times you'll see them under a dock or on a piling or whatever it is, and you'll get a fish to bite, and then you can't get another one to bite.
They're smart. It seems like.
So what we do a lot of times is we'll just will take 10 or 15 pound fluorocarbon tied to a really little circle hook, kind of bury that hook into the shrimp or whatever bait you're using and just free line it in there.
Right.
Make it look like it's just floating through. And that sometimes it makes a difference taking the weight off.
If you, again, just like when you're fishing for any fish that you're heavily chumming for, if you can get your bait to float with the chum, it's really great.
Make it look like the chum.
Make it look like the chum. Although a lot of times these snappers won't eat something until it's on the bottom. You know, a lot of times they'll get it when it's following, but a lot of times mangrove snappers, they like to eat stuff when it's on the bottom. That's right. I like to use these little hooks right here. They're called the no-brainer hook, and it's a circle hook with a weight on the shank. And if anything, if you put a half a shrimp on there, anything that eats it, he's going to get hooked. It's almost impossible not to hook him on that circle hook with the weight in the shank.
No-brainer is a great name for that rig.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it works good. But if you don't have those, just a regular jig head works fine. If you're catching good sized ones that are keeper size, you can catch small pilchards or small little cigar minnows and pin them to one of those. That's one of my favorite ways to catch a snapper, is to have a little live bait on a jig head.
The bigger ones, even in inshore, the bigger ones like that live bait.
They like to eat the live baits. And when you're using a big live bait offshore, maybe a good sized pinfish, a double snell rig is really good. You can hook a pinfish or something under the tail on the top, and that's that hanging hook down there. If he comes and eats that thing, one of those hooks is probably going to get him.
That looks fancy. I don't know if I can tie that.
It's not that hard. If I can tie it, you can tie it. And what you want to do is, you're always, like I said, with these fish, we want to try to keep all of our terminal tackle to a minimum, and so your weights is going to be just enough to get to the bottom. You don't want to use a whole lot. You can go ahead and use longer leaders if you're starting to not get bites. Use 20 feet, use 30 feet of leader.
Offshore guys by us use 20, 30 foot
It's kind of like mutton snapper fishing. Those guys who catch the mutton snappers, they use 60 foot of leader and then a grunt plug. And guess what? You catch a lot of mangoes when you're doing that.
That's right.
And if you use a grunt plug or something, again, this rig is great for a grunt plug. Just to free line it down in the shrimp, or in the chum, when you got them all chummed up. It's a great way to do it. I like when we go back to the inshore fishing, my favorite thing to use is a white bucktail jig or a Sprite spoon. A spoon with a little treble hook on the back, because they are short. They're snappers, and they will snap at that back of that spoon. And also gotchas. And I like the silver and gold gotchas, the shiny ones, versus the glow in the darks or whatever, because the shiny ones look like little minnows. And I've caught tons and tons. You can see that one's been chewed. Yeah. Tons of little snappers. They take those to the inlets. Oh, they take those to the inlets, and if you get them all excited, they'll eat those things easily.
Bree even caught one on a topwater, she said the other day.
I did.
So
they're fun. They're fun.
Did.
They're great fish. And they're so good to eat.
Good stuff.
So good to eat.
Little Rapala topwater. Or just come to my house. We've got them all underneath our docks. That's all I seem to catch. All right, the Bell's Southwest region is among us, and Captain Ronnie Houston is on the line to tell us where we can get those mangroves on our lines. Tell us how it's done, Ronnie.
Well, the mangrove snappers in the Southwest region are abundant throughout the region, both on the inshore and offshore side. Now, these fish can be caught all year round. Offshore structure on the offshore side is the key. Wrecks, artificial reefs, ledges, and hard bottom. Now, obviously, chumming you'll hear all tonight, but once they're located, dropping back small cut baits like shrimp, squid, herring, and pilchards. Light leader seems to be the key, and they're real fun to catch on light tackle. But what's really unique is how abundant they are on the inshore side through the region. Intercoastal docks, blowdowns, mangrove shorelines, and deadwood along the shorelines. I strongly recommend light tackle, 3,000 to 4,000 series reels, medium to medium-heavy 7-foot rods, and bait speed would be live shrimp, circle hooks, depending upon where they are, split shots, or even quarter-ounce to half-ounce knocker rigs to keep the baits in place. But also cut shrimp, live pilchards, and cut-up pilchards seem to be working really well. But also center soft plastics on a jig head. But one of my favorite ways really to fish for them in the Southwest region would be white, yellow, and brown bucktails down in the Everglades backcountry. The water's more brackish. You can just get out and having a great time tipping your bucktails with shrimp or tipping them with fish bites. But I can tell you right now, up to the north, Captain Corey McGuire says on the offshore side, the mangrove snapper bite right now is in full spawn, and depths to concentrate on would be 70 to 120 feet of water. He's telling me heavy chumming, once you get them going, drop back some glass minnows, cut sardines while freelining back with 2-0 circle hooks, and I got a nice picture of a great fight with Captain Corey on the offshore side with the Mangrove snappers.
Nice.
Nice.
On the offshore side still, Captain Corey McGuire is telling me the red groupers to the north. Sanibel to Stump Pass. Red grouper are starting to push in a little shallow, he's telling me, because of the hot water temps. Catching legal fish as well, but plenty of shorts. You really got to work for it as shallow as 65 feet. He said, look for the bait stacks off the bottom and fan cast white bucktail jigs, tip with squid to locate them. Once you get them located, anchor up. But then also you can use the straight bucktails drifting through with cut squid, herring, sardines on the bottom. See what might trigger a better bite. And I got a picture of a couple nice red groupers caught in the last few days up at the northern end of the region. Now, on the inshore side, we're going to talk about the snooks. Captain Jim Fortman out of Port of the Island says the snook bites off the chain on the outgoing tide on the outer Gulf Islands. He's fishing a little different. He's not really using live baits. He's using cut mullet or ladyfish on a knockabout rig. But if you can find the live finger mullets, he says those will also work too. But also, with all the rain we've had in the last 2 weeks, every day, the Everglades backcountry, the feeder creeks, the mouths of the points, with current, wind-blown shorelines, that bite's been really good, all because of the fresh water and the current. Poppers, prop baits, and subsurface baits, 6 inches to 2 foot. Also the Bass Assassin 5-inch sea shad and whiter line truth with a 5/0 circle screw lock, hook, weedless, 8 to 1/4 ounce weight, depending on the current and the depth. I got a couple nice pictures of some snook just caught with Captain Jim Fortman and Brian Sanders to the south on the outer Gulf. Last piece is going to be the redfish. On the days it might be blowing, a southwest wind combined with a high tide, the upper end of the region, Turtle Bay, Bull Bay, West Wall, bite is picked up with the fish under the bushes on those high tides. Fish seem to be grouped up when you find them because of these higher tides and these southwest winds we're finding. Cut baits like mullet, ladyfish, pinfish on a jig head, or a knock rig, but I can tell you from the south end of the region, from Indian Key to Lost Smiths River, the last half of the income to the fast half of the outgoing on the outer Gulf Islands, along the mangroves, knocker rigging, cut baits such as shrimp, mullet and ladyfish, as well as white and yellow bucktail, tip with shrimp, or small scented soft plastics on a jig head. I got a couple nice picture of Captain Jim Fortman's customer catching night redfish on the outer Gulf. And as I close, I apologize, but Naples Take a Soldier's fishing coming up September 7th. And we will have Brie Gabrielle in there, as well as myself and Captain Rick Murphy.
Aw, thanks, Ronnie.
Awesome. That sounds great, Ron. Thanks for the great report. Here are the Catty Can hotspots for the Southwest region. Inshore, largemouth bass, snook, and juvenile tarpon. Fishing local canals, lakes, and spillways. Look for moving water with good current throughout the region. And offshore, Spanish mackerel and king mackerel. Fish Sanibel to Stump Pass, 12 to 25 miles out, fishing wrecks and large bait pods.
Okay, everyone, we're talking about CCA Star, so make sure if you catch one for mangrove snapper, you enter it in the Power Pole Conservation Division. That's right, any fish you catch can be entered in the Star to win a share of $500,000 in prizes with 17 divisions, both inshore and offshore, but only until Labor Day, which is crazy. It's coming up so fast. So don't miss out and get registered today at ccafloridastar.com. Any fish you catch can be entered.
That's good. I mean, I would enter every one of them.
Right?
Yeah,
I know.
There's some great prizes.
I know.
Really great prizes.
There are. All right, stay with us, anglers. We're taking you fishing in the Casa Vieja Southeast and Garmin Keys regions next. So start getting your gear together and rods rigged for the weekend, and we will be right back.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Power Pole, Swift, Silent, Secure, Bass Assassin, and Saltwater Assassin. The best lures, period. Blue Water Outriggers, everything for your outdoor adventure. Garmin, join the club. Kubota, find a Kubota dealer near you at gokubota.com. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
I'm Captain Rick Murphy, and I'm a life member of CCA. Why am I so involved with CCA, you ask? Because I want our fisheries to be in better shape for my kids and their kids. CCA is working to ensure the future of recreational fisheries and the rights of recreational anglers. The future of fishing starts today with you. How do you want to leave things with your kids? If you're like me, you'll want to make the right choice and go to joinccaflorida.com right now.
Harbor Trucks has the largest selection of new and used car and truck inventory in Southwest Florida. Our used vehicle inventory goes through a 120-point inspection process performed by certified technicians. Exclusive to Florida Insider Fishing Report viewers is our Peace of Mind Harbor Truck Warranty. If you don't see what you're looking for, give us a call and we can get it for you. Go to harbortrucks.com and click on the Florida Insider Fishing Report tab.
Real Legends Performance Clothing. Everything you need to be comfortable on the water all day long. Keeps you cool, dry, and protected from the sun. Durable performance technology at an unbeatable value. Shop anytime or go to reallegends.com to find a Bell store near you.
I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere, and there's no place I'd rather be. I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere, and time don't matter to me, 'cause I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere.
Hey guys, we're here at the boat show, and not only does Yamaha make the big 425 XTO, but we also are a leader in the small motor categories. So from a 2.5 horsepower right on into the 25, these are the motors now that are being considered to replacing some of the old two-stroke motors that we have. Now, as you know, the population of small paddle boards and little fiberglass skiffs is really growing. Also, what's happening is that we're having a lot of restricted areas to where you have to remove the motor in order to go and fish in these no motor zones throughout Florida. So let's talk a little bit about the 20, the 25, and the 15 and the different shaft lengths that we have. And we come in a 15-inch shaft as well as a 20, and even for you sailboaters, we have the 25-inch shaft and the 25T, which is high thrust. The high thrust allows us to run a bigger prop and gives us more reverse power as well as forward propulsion. We have tension knobs that allow us to offset some of the torque as we're running from point A to point B. But remember, it's a lot easier now at 126 pounds to just simply remove the motors and remove the full fuel lines and lay the motors down in the boat so that you can fish in those no motor areas. Now, also on the 25 and some of the tiller models, we have the ability to turn down the idle by simply detuning down or up. It gives us a better trolling speed, or even maybe approaching the dock in a lower speed on windy situations and days. So if you have any questions, you can go to YamahaOutboards.com, or you can simply go to a local Yamaha dealer and they'll be happy to answer all your questions.
Wasn't it nice that Rick could grace us with his presence?
It was nice, and I'll tell you what, I fished with Rick, and he has one of those small little motors, and there's a lot of power and a small package, easy to take off and put in the boat and everything. I mean, great motors.
Just like Rick, a lot of power in a small
package. Yeah,
there we go. All right, the good news is the mangrove snapper are plentiful in the Costa Mesa Southeast region, but let's listen up to Captain Jimbo Thomas as he tells us what the not so good is about these babies. Jimbo? Go for it.
Hey, Brie and Tommy and Dave. Well, you know, we've got plenty of mangrove snapper here in the southeast region, both inshore and offshore, but the problem is finding fish of any size. Now, pretty much any structure will hold mangroves, and small fish can be caught around any of the bridges up and down the intercoastal waterway, as well as the creeks and inlets and the artificial reefs. It isn't that there aren't any large fish around those structures. The problem is just getting those big fish to bite. They get a little weary as they get bigger. Now, Captain Wayne Kahn aboard the Reward Fishing Fleet out of Miami Marina, he tells me that his favorite time to fish for mangroves is from the middle of May through August, and lately he's been finding mangroves from 1 to 3 pounds with the occasional larger fish up to 6 pounds. And he's been anchoring or drifting with live pilchards, cut sardines, and cut silver sides over the reef and hard bottom in 50 to 60 feet of water. He's been fishing from the middle of South Beach south to Key Biscayne. He likes to use 20-pound tackle, 30 to 50-pound monofilament leader, and 1/0 to 3/0 circle hook, and use just enough lead to hold bottom, whichever the current is. Now, if the fish are spooky, which they are a lot, you might want to try fishing a little bit lighter leaders. And he says that it's best to fish off of the moon, and the bite usually doesn't start until after 9 or even 10 o'clock in the evening, which isn't a bad deal with this heat. And he recommends to chum with cut bait, cut chunk baits versus with chum, because the chum will draw the sharks in. And then also the night fishing in 50 to 80 feet of water from Lake Worth Inlet south has also been good for mangroves in that same size range. Now, staying offshore, dolphin are still one of our best bets. We've been finding them anywhere from 400 feet on out to 2,000 feet, which is roughly 4 to 15 or 16 miles offshore. We still got big patches of sargassum weed coming through, and those nice-sized schoolies are being cut off of these big weed patches. Now, there's also been birds working over schools of fish moving to the south in the area of that scattered grass. And if the grass isn't too thick, you can troll through it, and they've been eating rig, ballyhoo, along with small lures and feathers, but a lot of times that grass is really bad, so you can cast live and cut baits to those fish. Also, you can get in front of the birds and cast to the fish or soak live baits around those weed patches. And there's plenty of bait out there around those weed patches, little blue runners and other small baits. They're hanging under that grass, so you can drop your sabiki under there, catch those live baits, put them in the live well. That's exactly what those dolphin are eating. Now, most of these fish have been decent-sized schoolies in the 4 to 6 pound range, and the biggest fish I've heard of in the last week's been around 25 pounds. But I'm sure there are larger fish out there. You just got to find them. Now, I got a photo here. This is the crew of the Insider Fishing Report that we had out last week with a nice dolphin catch aboard the Thomas Flyer.
You get a dolphin, and you get a dolphin.
Everybody ate dolphin.
Yes, they did.
Yep. Now, moving inshore, the snook fishing remains good in the inlets and in the surf off the beaches. In the inlets, you want to fish with live herrings, pilchards, pinfish, croakers, or you can bounce jigs or soft plastics along the bottoms in the evenings. Now, the snook have been biting on both the incoming and outgoing tides, but it seems like the outgoing's been a little better, mainly because the water's not as clear. Now, the fish have also moved off the beaches where they're being caught from both the shore and by boat. If you're shore-bound, try walking the beach early in the morning or late afternoon and cast green or white, or green and white, Bass Assassin 4-inch jerkbaits into that trough just off the beach. And if the seas are calm, which they have been, and the water clear, you might be able to sight fish those snook. They'll be cruising in the surf. And it seems like the smaller fish are roaming in schools. The larger ones have been singles or pairs. Then we got bonefish and permit. The bonefish have been active on the inside and outside flats, and the permit have been mostly on the outside flats from Soldiers Key, South Angelfish Creek. Early in the morning before that water gets too hot, and then late in the afternoon, especially just after a rainstorm will come by, cool down that water, the bonefish have been coming up on top of the flats and tailing on the lower stages of the tide. Then those permit have been cruising the hard-bottom oceanside flats, and on the higher stages of the tide, those permit have been on top of the flats, and then as the water falls, they've been cruising along the deeper edges of the channels. Now, the best bait for both has been a small live crab or crab pattern flies. Now, I got another photo here. This is Carrie and Leah White from Austin, Texas, with a beautiful Biscayne Bay permit that they caught last week with Captain Joe Gonzalez.
Nice, Jimbo. We were out there looking for those today, man. Those are tough fish to catch. That was a great report, Jimbo. Here are the R&R tackle hotspots for the Southeast region. Inshore, catch and release snook off the beaches or in your local inlet using live and artificial baits in the early mornings and evenings. And offshore, troll rigged baits and small lures or cast live and cut baits to dolphin offshore around weed patches, floating debris, and under the birds.
You were out there doing a little fly fishing.
I was out there today.
Yeah.
That's not an easy
Tough
thing
stuff,
to do.
huh?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, but it's a lot of fun. It's fun
and
trying.
challenging. All right, Tommy, you were actually just fishing with your family down in the Garmin Keys region and even caught a few fish with our resident captain, Randy Tao.
We
so
did.
Let's say hi together, shall we?
Randy.
Hi, Randy. We'll
hey,
get there.
good evening, guys. Hey, fish fans. You know, when we talk about fishing in the Garmin Keys region, about snappers, mangroves particularly, you know, they really are very common around the bridges, around the docks, on the reefs, in the backcountry, around the mangroves. And, you know, Jimbo made an interesting point. There's no shortage of them, but it is tricky to get the big ones to bite. And that's really where your tackle, your bait, and really technique comes into play. Now, if you're on the edge of the reef, which this time of year, a lot of guys like to night fish, especially that full moon in July is a great moon for the reef, and they're spawning, and a lot of these mangrove snappers are going to be on the larger side, and guys are catching them with pilchards and small pinfish and cut bait like that. Now, if you go in the backcountry, you might put a chum bag out, and you'll notice a lot of the little ones come right into the boat, and those big ones are going to hang back. You're never going to see them. But if you fish a larger bait on a light leader with a small hook away from the boat and just let it sit on the bottom, it's probably going to yield you a better fish. And a lot of times you're not going to see these big snappers because they are very smart. I think there's so many of them, and they've been around so long that we've educated them. So it's maybe it's our own fault, but there are ways to catch them and their techniques, and that's how you would go about it. The Mangrove Islands in the backcountry are one of the most popular places for people to go, and usually you just pull up to a branch or part of the shoreline, and you look down, and you see the snappers there, and you know it's one of those things. It's not real hard to find them a lot of times. When you're looking for them, it's much harder to catch those big ones. Now, I've got a picture of big mangroves that the 2 Conchs charter guys catch at a marathon at a big-time bait and tackle, and they were using live bait on the edge of the reef to catch these.
Nice fish, Randy. Tell us about the blackfin tuna.
You know, this time of year, guys are going offshore, still dolphin fishing, but we're going to pass over those offshore humps almost every day. And you want to take advantage of conditions, low light conditions especially, whether it's in the morning or an overcast day or a stormy day, which we had some of that last week. And the tuna fishing was pretty good. Now there's a few ways to target them. If you want to just catch a few tunas as quick as you can and move on to something else, and you're not worried about them being real big, but big enough for dinner, you want to troll those dark feathers or those dark eels. They have a black eel that works very well at low speeds, and also the feathers work very well at a regular trolling speed. And just troll in a figure-8 pattern over top of the hump, and you're probably going to catch what you want for dinner. And if you want to target the bigger ones, you really need to have live bait, or you need to vertical jig them. And guys like Captain Paul Ross on the Relentless out of Bud Mary's, he's very good at catching everything, but he'll load up on pilchards, and sometimes they'll have upwards of 1,000 pilchards in their live well to chum these fish and get them up to the surface. And I've got a picture of him doing just that with a big tuna they caught on one of the marathon humps.
That's a big blackfin there, Randy. Tell us about the inshore tarpon.
You know, this time of year we got a mixed bag on the tarpon, and really the fly fishing guys look forward to this time of year. A lot of little ones, and after you've caught a 100-pound tarpon on fly, you know what, a 30-pounder's not so bad. And you can catch them on lighter rods, 8-weight, 9-weight, like you would use for bone fishing. And these small tarpon get up on the flats, they get around the Mangrove Islands, and they certainly get around the Flamingo area. And if you know where to be in the morning, you can get into some really good small tarpon fishing. And there's also some big tarpon in the channels. You want to use your dead mullet on the bottom or a live pinfish to get their attention. But the small ones are really what a lot of guys enjoy catching this time of year. And it also completes a Grand Slam. A lot of the guys are fishing for a bonefish and a permit, and they need that tarpon, and they can go back to some of these little islands and catch a 20-pounder and make their Grand Slam. And it's a lot of fun to do. Captain Mike Alfano, a local fishing guide here in Islamorada, sent me this picture of a little tarpon they caught to complete their slam.
Oh,
nice.
Love it.
Cute one there. Tell us about the snook, Randy.
You know, snook fishing's been really good. I've been talking about it now for a few weeks, and I was determined not to talk about them again this week, but I had to because it's been good, and I had the opportunity to get you on the water, which was really great. Your friend Austin was with you, and we had a great day in the backcountry. And, you know, it doesn't always work when you got your buddy with you that, you know, the fish are biting and conditions were right. But I had a feeling when we started catching these at the first spot, we were going to have a pretty good day, and I wanted to share this picture of you and I with our day, and what a great one it was.
Nice. I'll tell you what, Randy, man, it was an epic snook bite, some of the biggest snook I've ever caught, so we really appreciate that trip. And
our captains really are friends.
Yes, yeah. We are really friends, and we had a really good time doing that, so thanks again, Randy. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Now, here are the hot spots for the Florida Keys region. Inshore, snook. Fish the incoming tide in the first 2 hours of the outgoing tide for best results. Live bait will be very helpful. And offshore, blackfin tuna. Take advantage of the low light conditions, weather, the time of day, or overcast conditions. Troll those dark feathers to catch some dinner.
Oh man, sushi dinner sounds so good right now.
Really good.
All right, there's always tournaments to talk about in the Garmin Keys region, so let's take a look and talk about them. All right, less than a month remains for the 2019 Key West Fishing Tournament, a free entry multi-division challenge that ends August 31st. Catches and witnessed releases can be entered at several tackle shops throughout the Lower Keys and Key West or at the tournament's website. Key West Robert James Slam Tournament, set for September 6th through the 8th, targets tarpon, permit, and bonefish so anglers can seek the coveted Flats Grand Slam. The slam raises funds for cystic fibrosis treatment and research. Reef Environmental Education Foundation's 10th Upper Keys Lionfish Derby is set for September 13th through the 15th and hosted by the Postcard Inn in Isla Mirada. Activities feature awards for lionfish captured, fillet demonstrations, raffle prizes, and more. The Herman Lucerne Memorial Backcountry Fishing Championship is set for September 20th through the 22nd in Isla Mirada. It raises funds to support angler-oriented initiatives in Everglades National Park and Florida Bay. Information on all tournaments in the Florida Keys is available at flakeys.com. What do you think about that?
That's a lot of stuff going on in the Keys.
That's a lot of stuff. I need some water. All right, we're running north to the Yeti Panhandle region next, but first let's see how Dave is holding down the CCA workbench fort for some new products.
Looking too cool.
I think these maybe look like a cop.
Maverick.
I'm gonna start wearing these
Maverick.
more often. It's either poker playing or pulling people over on the side of the road when I'm not a policeman. Which I don't do that.
He might. He might want to, though.
Okay,
sometimes.
I've seen him do it.
No, I've never done it.
Looking cool, Dave. We'll be back.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. For all, for less. SoftScience, Supreme Comfort Footwear. Real Legends, exclusively at Bell's. Okuma, Inspired Fishing. Discover Crystal River, Florida. And Maverick Boat Group, makers of premium boat brands Maverick, Hughes, Pathfinder, and Cobia.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore 4-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 4-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
How do you aim a 36-yard shot with a 30-yard fixed pin at a 15-degree angle with a 7-inch holdover without moving a single pin? Easy. You get one of these. Zero, the auto-ranging digital bow sight from GARMIN.
Dave, we're here again, the CCA workbench. We're going to talk about some new products.
You've got the Costa pilot houses on right there.
I can't even feel them. They're so light.
Well, they're made out of titanium. That's why they're so light. Titanium is very light, very strong metal. It's what the SR-71 Blackbird was made out of.
Yeah,
but
high-tech
anyway,
stuff.
Yeah, very high-tech stuff. And these are very nice. They have a very wide frame, they get good full coverage on there. You know, usually those kind of wire glasses don't, but they have a pretty little curve to them. And they have the Hydrolite rubber temples on the sides, you know, that fit onto your face, on the back of your head really good, so they won't go sliding off when you lean over. They have got really good floating temple areas, actually, or, I mean, your nose bridge areas for, you know, they call it a floating, so it doesn't really pile onto you and put a lot of weight.
They're super comfortable.
Exactly. And when you put the 580 plastic in there, the 580Ps, they're really, really light, which those are, and they look really good. Those are the blue mirrors and the black matte finish. These are the gray matte and the gray lens. And you know, you'd use one of they have a halyard wire retainer for these, you know, kind of like the ones I got here, except for a little thinner. And go ahead and get you some of those. They're very nice looking. 580p, the Costa's Pilot House. Very nice. Next, we have the Florida Tackle Club. Brie brought this in the other day.
This is cool, yeah.
It's a good idea. You know, what you do is you go online to the Florida Tackle Club and you subscribe for either 1, 2, 3, or 6 boxes. And every other month, you know, unless you get one, every other month they'll send you a box full of stuff. And open up there.
I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff.
There is really good stuff in there too. It's not one of the discount deals where, you know, you pay $50 and we give you $100 worth of stuff. So, you know, it's really, really good stuff.
That I would use. I mean, it's good stuff.
Correct. You're going to pay a little bit more for it probably than if you were going on one of those discount deals. But the upside is this is stuff that we actually use. And
they got Bass's. It must be good.
Yeah, they got all really good stuff in there. And so go to Florida. It's great for a gift. You know, when I was a kid, to get something like that would have been.
It's like Christmas
so big to me. Yeah,
every month.
I loved doing that. There's no recurring payments. You just pay one time, and it comes to your house. Very cool thing.
Yeah.
If you have a wife, a daughter, or a son, or somebody who likes to fish, can't beat that. Next, we've got, these are from Strike King. These are the KVD, Kevin Van Dam, perfect plastics, and these are the gurgle toads. I like to bass fish, and I like to throw topwater plugs, and the frog is the best topwater plug.
Redfish will eat this too.
Correct. They will eat frogs, and these are the 3 3/4 and a 3-inch frog. They're very soft. They have a coffee scent in them, which is supposed to keep people scent off. I don't know. They use coffee to keep the drug dogs off.
Right.
But I don't know if it'll work for a bass. But
if he's sleepy,
somebody supposedly did some science there. We don't know. It's very soft, very soft, so they're going to hang on to this. I like these are pretty stiff little curly tails on the end, so they gurgle really loud, and you want it to make a little bit of noise. My frogs, anyway. So great hookup, and there's a good hookup ratio on them too, because they're so soft they fold right over. A lot of those stiffer ones you don't get a really good hookup on sometimes. The hook sticks in there and jams up.
There's a nice little pocket right there for the
correct, and these are very soft. Next, we got some mirror lures. These are the new suspending crankbaits.
These look really good.
I love mirror lures. The Mirror Dean is one of my favorite ones. The She Dog, the She Pup, all the top dogs. I mean, I just been using them since I was a little kid. And these are the new suspending crankbaits. These dive like 3 to 5 feet. You can just crank those things back to you, or you can use little rod sweeps and twitch them. Whatever you want to do. They're very shiny, like all mirror lures. They have the nice little mirror insert inside there. They come in thousands of different colors. They all come with good hooks. It's not one of those lures. You can see they're pretty double strong hooks. They're not hooks that you're going to have to replace or put bigger ones on.
The guys in Jacksonville love these little lip plugs for trout.
Yeah.
And redfish eat them too, but this is a killer
if you can
trout.
fish in a place, like 5 to 6 feet of water or something, where you can get that thing have it swimming right above the grass, they're going to pile on it. So that mirror lure, L30 MR18 crankbait. And real quick, we got the TH Marine Hydra. It's a battery terminal multiplier. With guys like all the accessories, stuff that are putting on boats nowadays, and if they're wiring it like I do, your battery looks like a big pile of spaghetti when you're done with it, with all the wires and junk hanging off of it. This turns one terminal into 5. They also have a three-headed one instead of the 5-headed Hydra.
This would be great for all the small boats.
Exactly.
This would be great. All the stuff you could hook up to.
Very good insulator, color-coded, one nut, to take it on and off to replace 5. It's a great little tool. TH Marine Hydra. And I think we're done.
We're done. I'm going to put these back on because I like them.
Why not?
You are done. You guys should both wear them.
Why not?
And then give me a pair.
No.
They look good. No. Wow, he said no. Okay. Inshore or offshore, you're going to find those mangroves. And Captain Pat Deneen has more than enough to get you the hookup. So let's hear it, Pat.
Yeah, Brie, with mangrove snappers, they're also known locally as black snappers, and they're very popular and prized snapper in the Yeti Panhandle region. They can definitely be caught both inshore and offshore. As I mentioned last week, the inshore mangrove snapper bite turns on this time of year with good fish being caught near the structure within the bay, especially that deeper structure near the inlets. and that bite is going on as we speak. But offshore is where the bigger mangroves are caught. Again, they're structure-oriented, both natural and artificial structure, especially spots that provide some holes for the mangroves to hang out in. I used to do a lot of diving. You'd look up in the holes of some of the natural reef, and there'd be 8 or 10 mangroves just piled up in there. So it doesn't need to be a lot of high relief. It just needs to have some holes in it. Inshore or offshore, it's mostly a natural bait fishery. And to really catch them, you need to lighten up your terminal tackle to get the bite. You can chum them up to the top and then free line a chunk bait to them, or you can use a Carolina rig set up with a minimum amount of weight, a light leader, a small circle hook, and a live bait like a pilchard, a shrimp, or some other small live bait like a spot minnow or maybe a finger mullet. And this summer has been extremely good for black snapper. It's probably been one of the better summer seasons in the past several that I can remember. Plenty 8 to 12 pounders being caught. And proof of the pudding is a photo that Captain Ron of Rooster Tail Charters out of Pensacola sent in. His crew caught a nice mess of snappers, but the grade of mangroves was really strong. I mean, you can look at them compared to those red snappers. That's a really nice catch.
Good looking pudding.
Yeah, looking pretty tasty. Staying offshore, the amberjacks, they're open in all Gulf waters, and there are plenty of them being caught, and some really nice ones are being caught. You're going to find them on the Gulf on high relief bottom structure in waters exceeding 70 feet. The deeper wrecks generally hold bigger jacks and more of them. So if you really want to target amberjacks, get the bites out in the depths, or get the spots out in depths exceeding 150 feet. Amberjacks like a lively bait, so strong baits like a blue runner, a threadfin, herring, a frisky mullet, all work great. But if you have the means to keep a small bonita alive, like a little 10 to 15-inch bonita, you got a slam dunk for a live bait for the bigger jacks. Fish your baits on a long leader. Give that bait some room to run around, and use a circle hook to match the size of your bait. And as always, keep fishing when you hook up. Other amberjacks are going to follow that hooked fish. They're going to be excited, and they're going to be ready to bite. And there's plenty of legal jacks being caught in both state and federal waters, and some have been exceeding 50 pounds and up. So there's some big reef donkeys out there. Moving inshore. Typically, this time of year, the deeper bay structures hold a lot of bait, and in turn, some really good redfish. Right now, it's no exception, with big reds hanging around the Mid-Bay Bridge and the Target Ship in Choctawhatchee Bay, the 3 Mile Bridge in Pensacola, and the Hathaway and Tyndall Bridges in Panama City. When you find the bait, you're going to find the redfish. So cruise the pilings, watching your bottom machine till you mark bait or redfish, and then set up. You can jig fish to redfish hanging out down on the bottom, or you can cast topwaters if you're lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time for the topwater bite. But the most consistent method is to spot lock or anchor and start chumming with live and chunk menhaden. The redfish and jack crevalles are going to find you. Many of these fish are in that 30-pound class, just like the one in this photo sent in by Captain Sid Little out of Sandestin. The angler is Jessica Fott from Arkansas, and that's truly a nice redfish she caught this past week by doing exactly that, anchoring up and chumming. And then finally inshore, the Spanish mackerel fishing continues to be consistent inshore throughout the Panhandle, both in the bays and along the nearshore Gulf. Chumming with pilchards in the bays along the points and deeper edges will usually produce some Spanish, as well as an abundance of bluefish and ladyfish bycatch. But to minimize the bycatch, look for Spanish flipping on the top or small turns, dipping in the deeper areas. Both are surefire indicators of Spanish being in the area. You can cast or troll Christmas tree rigs, bubble straw rigs, small spoons, or mylar jigs. Most of the Spanish being caught right now in that 12 to 15-inch range, but there are some bigger axe-handled Spanish around, especially along the beaches and the schools, or if you just target those deeper grass flat edges with like a topwater chug bait, you're going to find those big loner Spanish.
Thanks, Pat. Sounds like some fun fishing there. Here are the hot spots for the Blue Rigger Panhandle region. Inshore, chum the Mid-Bay Bridge with cut pogies for jumbo redfish and jack crevalles, and offshore, strong river rip between Double Nipple and Horn Mountain with all the pelagics.
Blue water outriggers.
Sorry, blue water.
It's okay.
I got a little.
That's what we're here for. We're a team.
Yeah.
We're a team. All right.
Thanks for having
me.
me.
We're good. All right, we're getting into the thick of it now, headed to our central regions, east and west, next on the Florida Insider Fishing Report. But before we go, we want to remind you that if you want to be up to date on all things fishing in Florida, visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch us on YouTube, and check us out on Instagram. We'll be right back.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Rapala, another great day. Startron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. Yeti, built for the wild. CCA Florida, the voice of recreational anglers for over 30 years. Ameritrail, load, launch, relax. And Strike Zone Fishing.
Titan and Titan XD Diesel from Harbor Trucks has America's best truck warranty, 5 years, 100,000-mile bumper-to-bumper, and can tow up to 12,000 pounds. Harbor Trucks has the largest selection of Titan XD and Titan in Florida, starting at $29,000. Harbor Trucks is conveniently located halfway between Tampa and Naples. Harbor Trucks, the place to buy.
Oh, there it is.
You can either stay busy fishing or get busy catching. From Texas to Tampa Bay or Key West to the Carolinas and beyond. For nearly 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites. Ask for Fish Bites and Fish Bites Fight Club lures by name or visit fishbites.com.
Find Florida's soul and discover Crystal River. Explore warm Gulf waters, spring-fed rivers, bountiful lakes, and fantastic fishing. Dive into adventure and enjoy the only place in the world where you can swim with the manatees. Treat yourself and your family to outdoor fun, rich history, and a relaxed coastal lifestyle. Discover Crystal River, Florida.
Welcome back, everyone. Tommy, would you want to win a fishing trip at a world-class resort?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, what about with world-class fishing?
Even better.
Even better. All right, well, you tell your friends. I'm going to tell mine right now. Harbor Trucks has partnered with Casa Vieja Lodge to send 2 lucky winners to Guatemala for a 4-day, 3-night trip to fish with Rick and me at Casa Vieja Lodge. All you have to do to enter is go to our website at FloridaInsiderFishingReport.com. You can't enter, Tommy.
No?
Sorry.
Oh.
No, you're like part of the crew.
I'm going to enter anyways.
Maybe people would be upset. Yeah, you should enter. Yeah, send your wife.
Yeah, there we go.
I love that. That'd be so much fun.
Cool.
All right, cool. Big mangroves are always a prized possession and a nice surprise. So let's see if our Bell's Central East Region Captain Jim Ross can put us on some this weekend. Talk to us, Jim. Jim Ross, where are we at?
All right.
All right, well, Tommy's taking over.
All right, well,
let's go.
Jim talks about the mangrove snapper. You know, he says they've got a pretty good mangrove snapper action going on right now in the Central East region. He said you can catch these fish inshore near oysters, docks, and pilings, and offshore on many of the reefs and wrecks in 70 to 130 foot depths. And the offshore fish are usually bigger, and they're going to respond well to chumming and chunking techniques. Virtually any type of bait's going to work. You just need to make sure that you have enough to keep the snapper interested. Small 25 to 40 pound test leaders and small 2-aught to 4-aught size VMC circle hooks. Hey, Jim, are you there?
I am. I don't know what happened there, but I'm hooked up again now, so you guys can take a break, and I'll take over from here. But you're doing a great job, Tommy, I'll tell you. You're like you were saying, 2-aught to 4-aught size VMC circle hooks. These fish have really good eyes, and so the guys that are getting out at night are actually catching the biggest fish. But if you're going to be fishing them in the daytime, that lighter gear is the way to go. And you need to chum, get them properly chummed up and get them good and fired up. And I've got a photo here of Captain Dave Carruthers at a Ponce Inlet. And this is one of the really nice mangrove snapper that he got. He's also got some other ones that I'm going to be sending in later in the season because he's been catching some monsters up there at Ponce Inlet. And then my second one is with Alex Goritsky, and he's a captain here out of Port Canaveral. He sent this one of Johnny Snyder, this really nice mangrove snapper that they got out while they were out there doing the red snapper mini season.
Nice Nice. Juicy
My next
big
species
ones.
is king. Yeah, my next species is king mackerel. Right now, Jimbo and Randy, for some reason, they've got a fence put up down in the south part of the region, and they're keeping all the dolphin down there, which is really bothering the guys up here in the Central East region, watching those guys continue to catch dolphin each week. But we've still got good, strong king mackerel action going on here in the Central East region. So if you get out to the trolling grounds, you can put some live baits out. You can put out some ballyhoo. Slow troll with the live baits, a little faster with the naked ballyhoo. You can put sabiki up some pilchards if you guys and gals can't cast net any pogies. But right now, Captain Mark Gibson was telling me that they're also hitting a blue and white sea witch with a bait strip behind it on a number 4 planer, and he's fishing those on the 70 to 90-foot reefs out of Ponce Inlet. Now, swinging inshore, tarpon have been really good. Right now in the Bell Central East region, we have more places to catch tarpon than just about anywhere else during the year, any other time during the year. Creeks, stormwater outflows, anywhere where there's water flowing in, into the main lagoon system, you're going to find tarpon. And the majority of these fish are juveniles, ranging from about 3 pounds up to about 30 or 40 pounds. Every once in a while, you'll see one that's about 50, though. Those bigger fish do get inside here. And recently, I was just talking with Captain Frank Catino. He's fishing the edge of the ICW channel between Cocoa and Port Malabar, so that O'Galley and Melbourne area right now. And he's fishing with fly rod, and he's getting tarpon up to 100 pounds. You can also try live pilchards and pigfish up in Tiger Basin. You can get a 6/0 or 7/0 VMC circle hook in those, put them under a float, or just free line and drift them if the wind is up, and you can catch those fish up there as well. And they are going up into the 100-pound range as well. My last species is speckled trout. And the Indian River between Titusville and Melbourne has been really good with them right now because there's a lot of bait fish, and in many areas we have good, clean water. Now, what you want to find is areas with bait fish like glass minnows and mullet that are holding together. And if you can find them near some sort of dock, mangrove bush, or rocky outcropping, that's even better. You want to cast the saltwater assassin 2 or 4-inch sea shads. Both the crappie dappers and the sea shads are working really good right now. Albino, opening night, and copper juice are the 3 top colors this week, and we're catching trout from 14 to 20 inches on a regular basis. And I've got another photo here with Donna Doxey. She and her sister Cindy Doxey were out with me not too long ago, and this is a nice trout that she got on one of those little 2-inch saltwater assassin jigs.
Nice, Jim. Don't you love the names that Saltwater Assassin comes up with?
They sit up there in Mayo all year long and think up things to name the next baits they're going to come out with.
We should have a competition like Ben & Jerry's flavor ice cream.
Yeah, that would be great.
Have people send in their thoughts.
Well, thanks, Jim. Great report. Here are the hot spots for the Central East region. Offshore, mangrove snapper on the 90 to 130-foot reefs. Chum and chunk with small pieces of bait fish on a small circle hook. And then inshore, trout and tarpon near flowing water. Fish bass assassin paddle tails on an 1/8-ounce jig head.
That's not a bad idea, right?
What
would you name one?
Oh gosh,
on the spot.
I don't know. Yeah, on the spot. I don't know.
On the spot.
The Tommy D, maybe.
The Tommy D. I like it.
Yeah.
Very original.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's see if we can hang with the Mangs in the Star-Tron Central West region with Captain Jeff Page. Page, I know you know the secrets, so share away.
You know what? I know some of the secrets, but all my offshore captains gave me some really good tips this week for the Star-Tron Central West region. And one of my favorite bass assassin colors has got to be the drunk monkey. That's got to be my
That's a good one.
But anyway, in my region, we have no shortage of mangrove snapper, and probably the majority of our year-round snapper are caught out in the Gulf of Mexico over hard bottom area, ledges, artificial reefs, and wrecks. And anywhere in the wintertime, they'll be in as close to 30, 40 feet of water. Right now, the good-sized snapper, 120 to 150 feet of water. Also, it's a good idea to bring a chum block. Excuse me, I know Dave talked about it in his stuff that he always talks about, having a good chum block. The other trick is whatever bait you're using for cut bait is to bring a bunch of those and cut those up into small chunks, just like they do with the yellowtail, and then put some of those on a small number 1 or even number 2 size circle hook with as light a leader as possible. I like to start out with probably 20-pound fluorocarbon, and if it gets broke off, bump up to 25. If it's successful or they're not biting good, go down to even 15. A good-sized snapper in our region is 2 to 4 pounds, but it's not uncommon to see some 5 and 6 pounders taken. I've got a couple photos tonight. one, of a happy client with a snapper, and number two, that snapper went in the box on the Flying Fish party boat with a boatload of people, and that's a whole box of mangrove snapper they brought in the other day.
Yummy.
All right, staying offshore, amberjack. You know, with the opening of amberjack season last week, the AJs have been cooperating real well with all our offshore guys, and the number seems to be about 150 to 180 feet over springs and ledges. The guys are doing real well using big live pinfish, big as your hand, and big blue runners. And if you're going to throw artificials, the vertical jigs work real well. The Williamson pink and white vortex jig or chartreuse and white. But Captain Jason Stott said the other day on a slick, calm day, he brought them up to the surface with a bunch of small filters and had them hitting the big poppers, the big saltwater Palco poppers that he likes to throw with heavy-duty hardware. And some of the amberjacks have been up to 80 pounds. So there's been some really good ones caught. Got a photo tonight of a big amberjack, again, caught on the Flying Fish with Captain Tim No. And then moving inshore, snook fishing. You know, Tommy, they're out on the beaches. They're hanging on rock piles, down trees, and any structure that goes along the beaches from Longboat Pass south to Gasparilla. On that afternoon outgoing tide we had last week, the best fish have been in the passes, and guys have been getting them like in the Venice Jetties, Gasparilla Pass, and even Egmont Pass. Sometimes they've been having to put a clip shot or even rig a Carolina knocker rig. But now we have the outgoing tides in the morning. So same game, just instead of the afternoon in the morning. If you like throwing lures, stuff to keep that saltwater assassin violet moon pattern, which is almost like a white bait with a little bit of fleck in it, and put that on a 1/4-ounce silver jig head. Also reports down in Charlotte Harbor, they've been doing real well around the Mangrove Islands and oyster bark with topwater plugs and live filtered. I've got 2 snook photos tonight. One of a girl named, and I hope I get her name right, Sarlia Devoknik, and she's wearing a Starbright or Startron hat. And then the other one is with Kevin Bronner, and both were caught with Mike O'Hara of Donovan's Marine. And they're both big snook. Last species, redfish, more reds are starting to show up in the entire region, and they've been biting on the outgoing tides in the inlet. Again, knocker rig with either a pinfish or a small finger mullet. And if you like throwing lures, it's tough to beat the 1/4-ounce gold spoon. Tight lines, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Here are the hot spots for the Daiquiri Deck Central West region. Inshore, mangrove snapper, good bite on the North Skyway Fishing Pier, as well as the ICW bridges from Manatee Avenue south to New Pass Bridge. And offshore, amberjack, big amberjacks holding on ledges and springs in 150 to 180 feet of water off of Venice. Live pinfish and blue runners are going to be the best bait to go with.
I've got my Bass Assassin jig name, Mama Mia.
There
Boom.
you go.
All right, well, I'm getting excited for this weekend's fishing excursions, and I hope you are too, especially if you're dropping a line in the Fish Bites East region, because that's where we're headed next, only on the Florida
Insider Fishing Report.
Oh, now we get it together.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Harbor Trucks. Visit harbortrucks.com. Yamaha, reliability starts here. Suffix, always use the best line. The IGFA, Fish for the World. Sportsman's Adventures, fishing for adventure. And Bells, everything you need to live life local.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO Offshore.
It's a different kind of work week out here. You need the power, performance, and enough attachments to scratch any itch. A subcompact tractor built to get any job done right. The Kubota BX Series, best-selling subcompact tractor in America. Now get a BX 1880 for payments as low as $99 a month for 84 months plus a 6-year warranty. 54-inch mower deck included.
Find a Kubota dealer near you at gokubota.com.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
Harbor Trucks has the largest selection of new and used car and truck inventory in Southwest Florida. Our used vehicle inventory goes through a 120-point inspection process performed by certified technicians. Exclusive to Florida Insider Fishing Report viewers is our Peace of Mind Harbor Truck Warranty. If you don't see what you're looking for, give us a call and we can get it for you. Go to harbortrucks.com and click on the Florida Insider Fishing Report tab.
Today's Power Pole Tip of the Week is about the power poles and its unique design, which allows us to deploy them and get them out of the way. So let me explain to you what I'm talking about. When I come home after a day of fishing, my 10-foot blades are sticking up a little bit too high in order to get them inside of the garage. By using the foot switch that's mounted up on the bow of the boat, I simply push it down so that I can get the proper amount of clearance and back in the boat, and here we go. Another way that sometimes the power poles are in the way is simply we deploy them going through creeks with overhanging limbs or even under bridges. Now, you guys, every once in a while, you love to fish out of the back of the boat, and so do I. And sometimes guys feel like, oh, well, that power pole, it's a distraction for them. Well, guess what? We can push the button 2 times, deploy the power poles. Now they're completely submerged and out of the way until you're ready to go home. So those guys that I see at the boat show and you ask me, how do you get it in your garage? Now there's the secret, and that's today's Power Pole Tip of the Week.
Oh my goodness, Rick just has an answer for everything, doesn't he?
He does.
He really does. Well, he's making a cameo, and we have another cameo in the Fish Bites East region with Captain Ed Zayak filling in for Mike Holliday. So Ed, welcome back, and let's hear what's going on this weekend.
Hi, glad to be back. Well, I want to talk a little bit about mangrove snapper. Right now we're coming up on the full moon, which is in August the best snapper moon of the year. So the fishing's only going to get better as this moon builds over the next week. You can find mangrove snapper anywhere from the inlets out to about 120 feet of water. The best action's been on the 6 and 8 mile reefs off of Stewart, the ledge off of Jupiter, the Loran Tower ledge, and the 65-foot reefs in Fort Pierce. Now you can anchor up and chum or drift the ledge to cover a lot more bottom. If you're going to chum, we usually do it with small pilchards or glass minnows, and sometimes we'll add a little chum bag. You can always do that. And remember, just give them a taste. You don't want to fill them up. And, on the calm days, we get them come right to the surface. Not always like that. Typically, they're a little bit closer to the bottom. So we want to use a little bit of weight, just enough to get there. Some 60-pound fluoro, maybe a 6.0 VMC circle hook, using Spanish sardines, cigar minnows, ballyhoo plugs, pinfish are really the top baits. The average mangrove right now is 2 to 6 pounds, but they're catching some fish over 10 pounds.
Tell me about this photo you got here, Ed.
Yeah, I got a little photo. That's Natalie and Michelle. They have a couple of fat mangrove snapper. They caught those on the Floridian with Captain Glenn Cameron. And those fish both ate Spanish sardines.
Wow, you go, ladies. Nice.
All right, how about the kingfish?
Yeah, the kingfish are firing off. It's when you have these westerly winds in the morning, the kings are charging the beach and working the bait schools close to shore. So just anywhere you can find bait right now in the 15 to 50 feet of water, you'll find the kings. Places like the Kingfish Hole, Bull Shark Barge, the 12A buoy, and the Vero Cove all are producing kingfish right now. And it seems like it's an early morning bite. Then it tends to slow down, but it definitely fires back off in the afternoon when the winds pick up a little bit. And we really like to target these fish with whatever bait is in the area. Thread fins, sardines, or pilchards. We use a number 6 R&R sabiki rig to catch the bait, and then we just send them right back out on the same bait school we'll put them on a wire stinger rig or use a triple hook monofilament Palm Beach rig. Just flip them over to the edge of the bait. I do a lot of trolling. I like to slow troll around those bait schools, make a lot of turns. Right now, the average kingfish is 8 to 15 pounds, but there's fish over 30 pounds are pretty common. Got a good pick with a kingfish there. That's your typical beach kingfish in that photo, and that's Ben.
Nice.
That's
Ben.
Let's move inshore, Ed.
All right, moving on inshore. Still thumping those big snooks. So it's kind of cool right now. We're working our way towards next week's full moon. So this week we'll really see some of the largest snook of the year moving towards the inlets to spawn. And at the same time, we have the first of the fall mullets starting to show up around the shorelines. So you really have the perfect scenario to catch a trophy snook on a topwater plug, which is one of my all-time favorites. You want to look for those fish to be cruising the shorelines and seawalls within a couple of miles of the inlets. So places like the bends in the Loxahatchee River, the docks near Sandsbridge Park and Sewell's Point, Northbridge Flats and Fort Pierce all have fish. And the beaches on either side of the inlets will also hold numbers of big fish out cruising, as will Lake Worth and Juneau Piers. This is strictly catch and release. So with the water temperature being warm, you'll want to unhook and release these fish as quickly as possible. So after the dawn topwater bite slows down, it's time to switch over maybe some live bait or maybe some soft plastic shad tails. I like to throw natural colors, and right now the average snook is 6 to 20 pounds, and we do have a good picture there.
Whoa, monster.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good one. So moving on to do some spotted sea trout. If you can find a good stretch of seagrass right now and you're on the water early, you'll get on a good topwater trout bite. The best action is North Fort Pierce and Vero Beach, places like the Moorings Flats, Spoil Islands around Harbor Branch, and the shoreline south of Torpy Road. The grass is still in pretty good shape there. You'll find these fish feeding along the edges of the mullet schools from dawn till about 8:30 or so. Then the bite completely shuts off. Schoolfish are in 3 to 4 feet of water, while the big trout are usually up a little bit shallower, a foot or two. You want to make long casts with a black and gold or black and silver topwater plug and work it from shallow to deep. Most of the bites come right as you're just about to pull that plug out. So I like to add a lot of pauses and hesitations in my presentation. The average trout right now is 1 to 4 pounds.
All right, Ed, give me a quick bass report. You got about 15 seconds.
Cool bass. Well, it's August, so Lake Okeechobee is super hot. You want to get on and off the lake early. Right now we have some shad schooling, so you want to throw big swim baits first thing in the morning or toads. Get those real explosive stripes. Look for the Kissimmee grass. That's where the bass are.
Nice.
All right, Ed, thank you so much. Here are the hot spots for the TH Marine East Region. Inshore, sight casting snook from the beach at Hobie Sound Wildlife Refuge. And toss bait fish flies or use 4-inch green hornet colored sea shads. And offshore, kingfish on the sand pile off St. Lucie Inlet. Live Spanish sardines on a number 4 wire stinger rig.
That was the best 15-second bass report I've ever heard.
That was really good.
It was so good. All right, well, we've given you all of the mangrove snapper info we could possibly give, and now it's up to you to go out and catch them up. But we have to tell you what we're getting into next week, so make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the Florida Insider Fishing Report.
Titan and Titan XD Diesel from Harbor Trucks has America's best truck warranty, 5 years, 100,000-mile bumper-to-bumper, and can tow up to 12,000 pounds. Harbor Trucks has the largest selection of Titan XD and Titan in Florida, starting at $29,000. Harbor Trucks is conveniently located halfway between Tampa and Naples. Harbor Trucks, the place to buy.
Master your most challenging offshore experience with confidence and ease with Yamaha Helmmaster. Precise, intuitive control on the open seas. Unrivaled ease for maneuvering and docking in port. And now SetPoint adds 3 new dimensions to boat control. Maintain boat position with fish point, or a position and heading with stay point, or a heading while you drift with drift point. Yamaha Helmmaster, now with SetPoint. Complete digital control for today's larger offshore boats.
For the bass that thinks it's a bulldog. For the walleye that thinks it's a freight train. For the tuna that thinks it's a torpedo. For the tarpon that thinks it's a tarpon.
You need the mono that thinks it's a braid. Suffix Advance. New advanced mono with HMPE braid molecules for strength, abrasion resistance, and low stretch. Suffix Advance. The mono that thinks it's a braid.
Do things. Be sane. Don't fritter away your time. Create. Act. Take a place wherever you are. And be somebody. Get action.
All right, guys, make sure to tune in next week because we are talking about permits. That will be fun.
Time permitting.
Time permitting. Do we have a permit for that permit?
I won't be here, though.
You won't be here, but you will for sure be
I
on
will be.
FaceTime, which you kill. And you killed the show, too. I'm not going to say good job, but
Oh,
you know,
great
you did.
job.
You did.
Great job. That was a
Okay,
great
you did a
job.
decent job. And
He
we're in
was
our
so
50
good.
Shades of Bahama Blue water here,
He's
and
so
our
good.
real legends.
That's right.
Yeah, we're looking pretty good.
That's right.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in.
I'm blue
Thanks for
water.
being here with us, Tommy. Good
Thanks for
job,
having
Dave.
me.
We'll see you next weekend. Have fun.